guys, before I start this video, I just wanted to let you guys know that I actually have a screening for the new film Warrior tonight. Unfortunately, I cannot go, and I really wanted to go see it because it's been getting such fantastic reviews, but I cannot go, but I will definitely see it and review it when it comes out in the theater. So I was just kind of bummed about that, and I knew I told you guys that I would see it early, but unfortunately I can't. But anyway, besides that, I did have a chance to go to a screening last night, and that was for the new remake Straw Dogs, starring James Marsden, Kate Bosworth, James Woods, and Alexander Skarsgård, which seems like the main reason why this movie was made, because if you go to the trailer on YouTube, every comment is like, Alexander Skarsgård, I love True Blood, he can rape me any day, he could be my neighbor. It's like really weird comments. It's like Twilight fans if they were brutal murderers and sick in the head. Anyway, Straw Dogs is a remake of a 1971 film starring Dustin Hoffman. It was directed by Sam Peckinpah, and I believe it also starred Susan George. And it was a pretty controversial film because it was pretty violent for that era, and it had a rape scene, which is very uncommon. So the 70s version is kind of still known today as a controversial film. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how they take that with the modern version, because they could probably make it more brutal and more intense, I thought, than the original, because the original was violent for that era, but to me it wasn't very intense, and it's kind of dated when you watch it now, and I wasn't the biggest fan of the original. It does star James Marsden and Kate Bosworth as a couple from Hollywood, and they go down to James Marsden's wife, Kate Bosworth. They go down to her old house in Mississippi because he wants to, write his new script down there, kind of get away from the hectic, crazy life of LA, I guess, which I'm in right now, as you can tell by this shirt. Along the way, they kind of get intimidated by Kate Bosworth's old flame, played by Alexander Skarsgård, and James Woods is kind of like a crazy drunken coach that kind of eggs them on. And there's these other storylines that kind of interconnect, and they kind of build up the whole movie to this violent confrontation, which basically has Kate Bosworth and James Marsden trying to defend their house by these crazy rednecks, and basically the transformation of James Marsden's character from being kind of a cowardly, wimpy Hollywood writer to, a pretty crazed guy trying to defend his home and his family. Now, the performances by everybody are actually really good. They probably made the movie better than it should have been. James Marsden was very good as the lead. When he was trying to defend his home and he was kind of going crazy, I really felt it. I mean, some of the faces he made were like really intense and really scary, and I believe that he was kind of going nuts trying to defend his house. Kate Bosworth was really good too. She definitely showed a lot of fear, and she wasn't annoying and whiny like a lot of the female characters are in these type of films. And she actually did something, unlike Twilight or any of those other romantic kind of action movies or thrillers. She actually did something. She actually killed a couple people in this movie, so that was kind of cool to see. I thought that the tone of and the direction of this film were pretty good. I mean, there's a lot of nice things to look at, and I thought it was the tone of the film. It was kind of tense and kind of dark. The whole film kind of gloomy. And there's always some tension kind of brooding. So I thought that was good. I thought the original and this one did that pretty well. Like I said, the climax of this movie is freaking intense and very gory. I mean, they saved all their special effects for the end. I mean, I don't want to give anything away, but there was like guys being, hit to death with objects. There's something involving a drill gun. I mean, there's some pretty intense stuff, and the climax is kind of what saves this movie, because the hour and a half leading up to that is boring. I was bored out of my mind for 95% of this movie. I was just waiting for something to happen. And yes, there was stuff that happened, but they either didn't serve anything to the plot or they ended abruptly. And that was one of the things too. Like, the editing in this movie was really weird. Like, some person will be on the ground, and then and then the next scene later, right there, they're on top of the ladder. It's kind of, I don't know if it's because I saw the movie early and they're not done, finishing everything. But there was just a lot of points where I was like, what just happened? They're trying to make the whole climax feel more fulfilling, but I don't know. I just felt like they could have done something else to keep me interested besides what they were doing, and that's kind of a problem I had with the original film as well. There is a rape scene in this movie, just like the famous one in the original, and unlike the original where, you know, it was a pretty big element to the story, this one has no point. They only put it in there because it's the most famous thing from the original, and you're like, okay, I know I don't like seeing women raped, so hopefully this will have something to do with the story, because I don't really want to watch this for no reason. And then later on in the movie, there is no reason for it, and you're like, oh great, now I just have to watch a girl get gang raped because that was in the original. And I was just like, oh, that really did not need to be in there. And I know this is a small complaint, but there is a scene where there is a deer where they are hunting, and it's a pretty pivotal scene in the movie. And James Marsden almost gets run over by this deer. He almost gets stepped on. And the CGI deer is so bad. I know this is such a weird thing to complain about, but it's like, you couldn't spend the extra $5 on, you know, a better CGI, or just get like a picture of a real deer and add a little bit of CGI. But this one, it just looked like a deer, like with a speed effect. I mean, it was terrible. I'm like, wow. I don't know why it bothered me so much, but like 5 minutes later, there'll be a completely different scene. I'm like, I'm still thinking about that shitty deer. But Straw Dogs, unless you want to have an hour and a half of pretty boring build-up for a pretty goddamn awesome climax, I will say that. The climax is very intense and very entertaining to watch. I mean, the final death in this movie had the audience gasping. There was like an old lady behind me going, like she needed her inhaler. But the movie, I mean, the build-up is almost worth it, but I really say that I was just too bored to really give the film that great of a recommendation. I'd say rent it, and if you're not into really violent movies, I'd just say skip it. So yeah, I'll probably give Straw Dogs a 2.5 out of 5. I would have hated it, but that climax was so good. That's my review of Straw Dogs, and yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. I will also put the link for my written Our Idiot Brother review in the underbar, because I did a written review on my blog. And yeah, thanks for watching.